There's a monastery a long time ago that was pretty vibrant and had a lot of people that would come to visit it. They would feel the peace there and the love there. And over the years, it started, the monks that were at the monastery started bickering with each other a little bit, getting competitive, comparing each other, and the novices started to not wanting to stay there, not wanting to get trained there. And the villagers stopped coming, and at one point they were down to about a handful of monks, elderly monks. And the head guy went to a friend of his, a rabbi who lived in the village, and said, you know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know why we are down to just a handful of us. Do you have any suggestions? What can we do? And the rabbi said, oh, you know, none of you would listen to me. I'm a rabbi. The monks wouldn't listen to me. And he said, but I do have an observation for you, if you're interested. And the monk said, yes, of course. What's your observation? He said, the Messiah is among you. And he's like, the monk's like, really? The Messiah is among us? The Messiah is one of us? And he said, yes, the Messiah is one of you. And I know this to be true. I know this to be fact. The Messiah is one of you. And the head monk, well, this is great. I'm going to go back and tell the monks and let them know. And so he went back and told them, and the other monks were like looking at each other like, well, it can't be him. And it certainly isn't him. I don't think it's me. I wonder who it is. And slowly they started changing their behavior because they weren't sure which one was the Messiah. And this wise rabbi was certain that one of them was the Messiah. And over time, people started coming back to the monastery because they felt the love and the peace, because the monks had, in the past, had forgotten that we all are one. They had forgotten that there was only one power and one presence. God is our first unity principle. They had forgotten these spiritual truths that we, each of us, are part of that, have a spark of the divinity within us, that we are that. That's unity principle number 2, I am. They had forgotten that their thoughts, the thoughts that they think and the beliefs that they hold, whether conscious or unconscious, create the experience of their lives. Unity principle number 3, I think. They had also forgotten that when they pray and when they meditate, they align with that divinity within them, and they receive guidance on how to act. It's unity principle number 4, I pray. And so they started acting towards each other as if each of them were the Messiah. They started treating each other with kindness and with love. They acted, which is unity principle number 5, I act. It's not enough that we know these things, know these spiritual truths. We have to act on them. We have to bring them forth in our lives. And as these monks brought these spiritual truths, these spiritual principles forth in their lives, once again, the monastery was full. And it had people coming, men coming wanting to train there. And it had people from the village coming and wanting to spend time there because it was a place of peace and a place of love and a place where they felt whole. And so I bring you that story or share that story with you today because we're talking about our 5 principles. This is the last week of our 5-week series on the 5 principles. And this is Unity's main teaching, the 5 principles by Unity minister Ellen Davenport. That we have these spiritual truths. The first 4 of them are mostly done in consciousness. We have to become aware. We have to take them in and work with them and feel their truth in our own minds and align our beliefs with those truths. And then when we take those in and get guidance, we can discern, is this guidance? Is this the guidance coming from my divine essence, from my divine self? And then act. And then act. Acts of service. That's living the truth when we act out that guidance. Ellen says on pages 111 and 112, living the truth is more about being than doing. When we are living the truth, any action we take will be from a consciousness of spirit and oneness with ego in service to soul. The 5 principles provide steps to lead us from ego to soul, from living unconsciously to living in awareness of truth. We need to stay focused on the truth as we know it. And when we don't, we're going to feel some friction. In our humanness, it's natural anyway to feel some friction. A couple weeks ago, I got a new pair of running shoes, and as I often do, I put them on and run around the house, and I'm making sure they're comfortable before I head outside. And these were really comfortable, but I never looked at the bottom of the shoes before I went outside. And my running is pavement and trails. And so when you get on the trails, and there's tiny little pebbles that get stuck in those treads, when you get back on the pavement, you hear this click, click, click. And you hear this friction, and I can feel it when I'm running. And so what do we do sometimes when we're in friction? We kind of dig in. We kind of push it down, or I'm trying to scrape my feet on the pavement to try to get the stones out of there, and it doesn't work that way. I have to actually do something. So I had to go home and take a fork and get those pebbles out of my shoes. But that's what we do in our humanness, because none of us are perfect in our humanness. None of us are. Awareness of the truth is the highest, deepest version we can comprehend. We're not perfect because we have human beliefs and human thoughts that get in the way of that divine essence, of that just coming through, unfiltered. Our forefathers were not perfect either. And this great celebration this year or this weekend of independence, we can look at our forefathers as men who were brave and courageous, who had friction in their lives, who had oppression in their lives, and they decided to act and do something about it. And we are grateful that they did. And the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, says this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, these ideas of liberty, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, equality, freedom, justice, these are divine ideas. These ideas come from spirit. And even though our forefathers weren't perfect in that, because when they wrote that all men are created equal, they didn't mean women. They didn't mean slaves. They didn't mean Native Americans. They meant the men who looked like them. They weren't perfect, but the ideas underneath that, the ideas in the Declaration of Independence are still true today. In fact, we've been evolving with these ideas. And I think we're in a point now in our country, on our planet, where we are becoming more aware of this, becoming more aware of the need for equality and freedom and justice for everyone in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. These divine ideas within the Declaration are relevant today. They've evolved. On Friday, Kevin and I, my husband and I, watched Hamilton on the Disney Plus channel. And I love how he uses the story of Hamilton, but uses a diverse cast. He said in an interview, "This is how America looks now." It doesn't take away from the history of it, but it brings it a more richness to it. But I especially love when the three Schuyler sisters were singing and they talked about all men are created equal, and in sequel 2 that will include women. We're seeing this movement now towards greater inclusion of all people, especially the marginalized. We're evolving as a nation, we're evolving as a planet where we honor all life and we're taking action. Now, I don't condone violent action, but we're taking action that doesn't harm, action that is peaceful, action to bring these divine ideas to everyone, to allow everyone to express from that place. And it's interesting how Ellen talks about in the book that the service does not need to be out in the world. Some of us may need to work on our own internal belief system. Some of us may need to become more aware of how racism is in our lives or in our consciousness and how we respond to it. Some of us may need to spend more time in meditation and align with those divine ideas in a more useful way, in a more loving way, in a more kind way. Some of us may need to educate ourselves more about racism and where we are holding racial thoughts and what we can do to stand with our brothers and sisters of color. I watched a video this past week that Linda Hirsch, our board secretary, sent. It's by Cornel West, who's a Black man who works at the Harvard Divinity School as a professor of philosophy, and he's written 20 books, and his talk is called What It Means to Be Human. And he says that to be human, we have to learn to die. Remember, Paul says in the scriptures, I die daily. We have to learn to die to those things that are no longer serving us so that life can be reborn in better ways, in more loving ways. What thoughts or beliefs are you holding that need to die in you to allow freedom and equality to everyone? Where do we hold that an American life is more valuable than a life in other parts of the country, like Venezuela or Uganda or Ethiopia? Many of us hold that our lives are more valuable. Is it true? What action can we take to rid ourselves, to let those things die so that we can become more open, more expansive, and see through a spiritual lens those spiritual truths of the 5 principles, that we are all one, that we all are made equal. Becoming more aware of our beliefs is an action we can take. Cornell went on to say, we don't want to be a spectator in our lives. We didn't come here to be spectators. We came here to be participants. And participants practice. And participants do and be in bigger ways, in greater ways, in more expansive ways. We don't want to just let life happen to us. It's so easy to sit back, especially when we're challenged, and just say other people can take care of that. It's ours to do. What is ours to do? It'll be different for each one of us. Ellen says this, there are no formulas for using principle. Not only is every individual different, but each came to earth with a different purpose and path. That's why our ability to create our own experience is so useful. We can attract the unique experiences that are perfect for each of us and take action as guided. This isn't easy, and it's certainly not comfortable. It can be very uncomfortable. Often divine guidance is uncomfortable because we're being pushed beyond our comfort zone. I know for me, sometimes when I get some divine guidance that is uncomfortable, I want to ignore it. I want to just let it go, especially during this distressing time, these hearing the news, or reading news articles. It can really sap your joy. I was reminded this week that my joy, where is my joy? It's not out there. It's not in any outer circumstance, but true joy is within. True joy is an attribute of spirit. And so it's ours to allow, to express, or not. But we need to turn within. It's not easy when we're all caught up in the negative news stories. But I've been doing this week is whenever I'm feeling myself getting anxious or angry or not feeling my joy, I'm telling myself, go to source. Go to source. That source is within us. That source is there. And that's the only place we're going to find lasting peace, lasting joy, is within us. And that's an action that we can take. Stop looking outside of ourselves to fill these needs and look within. It's all there. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. I was reminded of that scripture this week as well. It just keeps playing in my head. And what is the Lord but our own inner divine essence, our I am, that deepest, highest, best part of ourselves. That's where we find joy, and that's where we find strength. I've been having a hard time, too, with people who aren't wearing masks in my judgment of them, that they don't care about my health or my safety. I care about yours. I'm wearing a mask when I'm out in public. But I've recently tried to switch it to blessing. Remember our blessings practice that we had this past fall with the gentle art of blessing? So I've been trying to switch it over to blessings. Yesterday, I was on a run. And I've shared with you before that sometimes when I'm running, especially on the trail part, I hear footsteps behind me, and I often turn around, and there's nobody there. It's like, oh, it's Jesus. Jesus is running with me again. Jesus is there. So yesterday I'm running, and I hear footsteps, and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus is there again. And I turn, and right over my left shoulder, there's a man running by me. He's got a mask on. He's a black man. And I screamed because I was startled to see anybody there. It wasn't because he was black, but sadly, he put up both hands and said, it's okay, it's okay. And we went our separate ways right after that. And I silently blessed him. I wish I would have blessed him out loud. I wish I would have let him know that I was not a threat to him. That it wasn't the color of his skin that startled me. It was just having a person right there. There's so many things we can do when we become aware. I'll never understand what it is to be black. But the fifth principle can propel me forward to try to understand, to stand with them, to see through a spiritual lens, have a clearer vision of that oneness that we all are. I can't imagine what filters people of color must have when it comes to white people. We all have filters, and everything goes through those filters Ellen says this in the 5 principles: we see the world through our filters, our own filters. Filters is another word for consciousness. Nothing enters or leaves our experience without being sifted through the filters of our beliefs, assumptions, and histories. What if we could remove them on occasion, rise above them? Jesus suggested that we be in the world, not of it. What if we could remove them? What if we could see the Messiah in everyone, no matter whether we agree with them, no matter whether we resonate with them, no matter if we look like them? Remember our Love Your Neighbor poster? Love everyone, no exceptions. What if we could do that and rise above it? We don't want to be, we are in the world, but we don't want to be of the world, of the way the world thinks. Don't conform to that way, but allow yourself to bring forth your best. That's what we're here to do. That's a challenge we all have. We want to get out of the heat. Last weekend, Kevin and I were in Grand Lake in the mountains. You want to get out of the heat and get to where it's cooler. Jesus often went up to the mountains to get away, to be alone, to pray, to meditate. And so when we're in the heat, we need to rise above it. Go where it's cooler. Go where there's clearer vision. Get guidance by listening, being aware. I've been watching some videos by Emmanuel Acho. He's doing a series on uncomfortable conversations with the Black man. These are really well done, and they're short, they're only about 10 minutes long. There's 4 of them right now. And he says, let your guard down and listen. Not only do we as white people need to listen to people of color, but he's also listening to us in these interviews. We need to come to a place of understanding, meeting people on that bridge of understanding. It can make such a huge difference just to understand. I read an inspiring story this week. It was about Sean Drumgold. He's 29 years old. He's a Black man. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee. My daughter lives there in Nashville, and he lives in the 12th South area neighborhood. And my daughter Trisha and I have been there a few times for dinner. It's a really nice neighborhood, a lot of cool restaurants, really up-and-coming kind of place. He's lived there with his family since 1966, when his grandmother bought a house there. At that time, it was a Black neighborhood. And they've lived there a long time, but slowly over the years, there's been lots of gentrification, lots of Black families moving out, nice restaurants moving in, nice houses being built. And last week, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, he wanted to go for a walk, and he got as far as his front porch and sat down and thought, if I go for a walk in this neighborhood with everything that's going on right now, I might not come back alive. So he sat on his front porch, and he wrote on Facebook what he was thinking and what he was feeling. And it got the attention of some of his neighbors, people that lived in the area who didn't know that he couldn't even go for a walk. And so the next time he wanted to go for a walk, he had about 80 neighbors go with him, stand with him, walk with him. It's been growing. I think they're up to about 300 people going on a walk together. It's called Walk with Sean, so that Sean can walk and feel safe in his neighborhood. They've even gone beyond, and they're traveling to other cities, doing a Walk with Sean in other cities, so that our Black brothers and sisters can know that we stand with them, that they're safe with us. What can we do? What can we do in our neighborhoods? What can we do in our communities? How can we be during these challenging times?
Greetings to all of you. I'm Jim Blake, and I serve as the CEO for Unity World Headquarters at Unity Village. We find ourselves in the midst of seeming chaos everywhere we look. While in the throes of the largest pandemic in a century, we are now seeing unprecedented nationwide unrest. These are not small issues we are trying to navigate. We are taking on the safety, health, and well-being of our families, friends, and loved ones, while at the same time exposing and overturning centuries of bias, privilege, and racism that has long been screaming to be acknowledged and addressed. We need profound change that preserves and protects the human rights of every individual in this country. It's a lot to process, individually or collectively. In the midst of so much divisiveness at every turn, it can be easy to become overwhelmed. There is tremendous pain, suffering, injustice that must be accounted for. My message today is to tell you that wherever you are in the midst of this, we see you, we feel you, we hear you. We are listening so that we may understand deeply what troubles you and how unity can be a source of comfort, education, and inspiration as we walk together and forge a new path forward, ushering in the great change that is so desperately needed right now. Our commitment and calling at Unity to help and serve has never been more steadfast or strong. And though we may not have all of the answers, we are working as hard as we can to provide a platform for the voices of change to be heard, to create a safe container that is steeped in spiritual principle so that we may together listen deeply, grieve, pray, connect with empathy, have dialogue, share information, and lift the consciousness and the conversation. May our prayers and our dialogue be transformed into spiritual right action that will create long-lasting and meaningful change. This is our commitment to you. We stand with you in unity.
I want to move us now into a time of meditation, and I'm going to use Ellen's meditation at the end of this chapter on the fifth principle. So I invite you to just get comfortable. Gently close your eyes and reflect. What is mine to do? How am I to serve? I have come to this human experience not just for myself, but for others. And I stand ready to share God's love with them. That love expresses through me and as me. I make myself ready. I ask for my perfect place of service. I live the truth, knowing that God is all, that I am God, that we are co-creators, and that I am never separate from divine radiance. I let my light shine to illuminate those in darkness. I let my heart expand for those who need love. I give as it has been given to me, and I am grateful for us all. I invite you to hold those thoughts in a moment of silence.